Hey everybody, welcome back to another movie review. Hope you guys have been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. Excuse me if I seem a little off. It's just I was just in the theater and I was just didn't get really a chance to eat. I was meaning to like drink and eat. I usually try to during a film, but I didn't really with this one. Also, I had to pee real bad, so it's just feel real literally flushed. So I need to go eat in a little bit here, but uh, went to see another mystery movie today, and I had a pretty good feeling what it might be, and my suspicions and chatter on Reddit forums, because like I said before, another mystery movie is that now I check the Reddit forum just to make sure what it is going to be before I literally walk in the theater, and it was what I thought it might be. And that film that we're going to talk about today is The Bikeriders, which was written and directed by Jeff Nicholas. Not familiar with his work, so yeah, not familiar with his work at all. Starring Tom Hardy and Austin Butler as they are involved in a biker gang. Tom Hardy leading the group of these motorcycle cyclists. They call themselves the Vandals, and Tom Hardy is the leader of such group. Austin Butler is just a part of the group, but is Tom Hardy's kind of like right hand man, is like his favorite amongst the group. And our viewpoint throughout the film is that of Jodie Comer, who at first is just a everyday type woman, and she quite literally just walks into this world and is met with many just greasy and just filthy figures, and she stumbles upon that of Austin Butler, falls for him, and gets involved in this whole group of sorts, as the group is chronicalized from their beginnings to their ends, and how they evolve over time, becoming from that of, just as the film's titled, just bike riders, to that of gangsters and mobsters, and ultimately becoming just crooks and criminals, another form of crooks and criminals. So, um, so that is the gist of it, and um, the impression that you get from the film, and it's not a completely just what's what I'm looking for. Like, it's not, the impression that you get from the film is that of Martin Scorsese, and that feeling that you get is not at all incorrect. It is absolutely the influence that is surrounding the Bikeriders. It is that of Scorsese, specifically that of Goodfellas, in that the spirit of how it wishes to treat its film and its overall story and the characters is very much so that of Scorsese. Just how they show the perhaps exaggerative or perhaps just authentic representation of how these gangs operate, their toxic masculinity, the treatment of women, and um, just the their overall manner, in the group, and how they handle situations. It very much reminds you of that of Scorsese and how he represents that of the gangsters, and which has become just quite the staple in cinematic language. It is the representation of gangster on film. Accurate, we don't. It's to be seen, but nonetheless, in cinematic language, it is absolutely rooted in Scorsese. And just how the film is wishing to represent its characters. And the issue that comes with that, quite so, with trying to be Scorsese, is that it is only concerned with that, in replicating that of Scorsese. And what you get from the film is kind of what you get is ultimately that of an imposter, because it is trying to replicate that aura of Scorsese. It's trying to bring about those same mechanics, that same just progression in its story, where it starts off quite comedic and it starts off quite exaggerative and silly, and then it evolves into something much more serious and much more dramatic, and it plays to those very same beats. But what it negates entirely, I must say, is the characterizations and the developments of these people, because the key thing about Scorsese that is interesting is that how he is able to take characters that are just rotten. Like, just, like when you watch the characters that De Niro, Joe Pesci, all these characters in each of Scorsese's films, I mean, yes, they're scum. They're absolutely scum. But the fascinating thing, the brilliance, I must say, about Scorsese is how he's able to make you sympathize and make you care to some extent about people that are just assholes. This does not understand that. What you get is just a bunch of assholes, and for the entire time, of which, by the way, the film is about an hour and a half, and yet it feels like the length of a Scorsese film. It feels like a 3 hour film, and that it just feels long. It just feels tedious. Like it's just like I was surprised when I just walked out, realizing that yeah, this is only an hour and a half, and yet I just feel like I just sat through the length of that of a Scorsese film. So, um, at least Scorsese as of late. So, um, but um, but what you get with these characters is not characters that are portrayed in multiple dimensions or have many layers to them. The closest that you get is that with Tom Hardy's character, but everybody else is just frankly a jerk. And I mean, all of them. I mean, Tom Hardy is even a jerk himself, but like none of these characters I sympathize with, and it's just this really, it's a side of Scorsese's filmmaking that I've never really appreciated, and the film revels in it. It's allowing for that toxic masculinity, that sort of mentality to just kind of be the overall attitude and environment of the film. It's not wishing to find a point of sympathy, a place for us to really plant ourselves with these characters. Instead, it just lets these characters just, frankly, as like to kind of how Tom Hardy's character says at one point, you just do what it kind of they do what they do. And the problem with that, with allowing characters to do whatever they want to do, and frankly with the situation itself, because that very statement that Tom Hardy's character says at one point in the film, it says like near the end how you have one thing and then eventually you let it go and it just does whatever it wants to do. It quite frankly is how the film itself ultimately acts. It's just at one point there was like it starts off and it has the building blocks, it has something, and then eventually it just lets itself go and it just starts to do things, and it all falls to how they've written this gang. It's just, I think even Jodie Comer's character says it at one point, is that the gang just kind of does what they want. They're just they act as if they have rules, but they really don't. And the film itself is acting with that mentality and that spirit. And the problem with having that as the spirit of the film is that there is a birthing of some nonsensical quality. And a lot of the time, the film just devolves into rambling, and it doesn't amount to much on a dramatic level. And in characterization, it just runs extremely thin. And a lot of the times, I'm just sitting there going, wait, what? Why would that character do this? Why did we have to do that? Like, motivations and stuff like that are not made clear. And thus, when seriousness or sincerity is presented, when there is a near rape sequence, when all these things are happening, the weight of that, outside of, Jodie Comer's character, again, Tom Hardy's character, I would say, is the closest to having multiple portraits, but Jodie Comer's character, who, by the way, the accents are also questionable at best, especially Jodie Comer's. I just found her accent to be very distracting. And Tom Hardy, I don't really know what he's trying to do. It sounds a bit of Joe Pesci, and then they even made this point themselves in the film that it's like kind of a Marlon Brando type thing. Austin Butler, frankly, is not doing much except just giving smolders. Like, it's just like you get a bite of Jodie Comer's character when such a scene happens with that near rape sequence. You get at that point something of herself, the actress, gets something of a meat to her character. There's a scene that plays after that I think is actually the best acting in the film, but it's deriving also from another one of these just one-dimensional characters outside of a sliver, outside of one moment, So it's an issue of the filmmaking. It's an issue of what the filmmaker is wanting to do with this. I think that if it was taken in a direction that was more frankly original in its spirit and not trying to replicate that of another filmmaker, I think that it would be something much more interesting. But you know, it's trying to be Scorsese inside and out, and I just don't think that that spirit really created much substance. If anything, just just it just makes the style of the film so abundantly clear, and it throws away the characterizations and the developments, the rules of its world, of what it's trying to set up. What the rules of this environment are left pretty much absent and left in the background. And just because you acknowledge it in the film does not make it so that the film has some sensible, structure. It's just in some way just makes it even clearer to me that the film doesn't really have much of a driving force, or such and such. Like even Jodie Comer's like the performances themselves, like I said, they're I don't know if I mentioned it, but the performances themselves are okay. I mean, the accents themselves are questionable, but the performances even seem a bit just all over the place, especially Jodie Comer's. Outside of, again, that one scene, it's just at that one scene, it seems like the character finally has some groundedness to her, because outside of that, her character pretty much amounts to just like, those kinds of people that just don't really think too hard. They just kind of just say like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. Like that kind of person. That's pretty much what her character is. It's just someone who just rambles and rambles and rambles. Austin Butler is the character of the complete opposite, just doesn't say anything, has a bunch of smolders. And then Tom Hardy, I just frankly don't know what he's doing. So it's just a lot of clashing, I must say. But a lot of that also boils down to, because it's like it's funny to come to it, but it's like, it's basically just literally as the film has said. It is just something that just kind of does what it wants to do, and the players involved also are doing what they want to do, but they're not melding together. Like nothing really comes together. And I mean, just a lot of the time I was just sitting there, just kind of just like half listening. I was staring at it, but I was ultimately like kind of eternally just thinking of my thoughts on it, not necessarily engaging with the film, but just kind of sitting there looking at it, but just in here more than out here, So it's a bit messy. Yeah, I know the film was delayed a couple times, but I don't think there is really much here. I mean, that's really like I said, it is a film that is an hour and a half, and yet it feels like it's 3 hours long. So I don't think there's a better way to describe the film than that. So it just is kind of boring, a bit nonsensical, a bit messy, performance-wise questionable in terms of also the accents. I just don't know what they're doing. It's kind of a question mark in terms of just the purpose of what it's trying to get at. And I just don't really care to really figure it out. So yeah, it is as it is trying to be. It is whatever. So it wishes to be just whatever. So in turn, it is whatever. So yeah, so those are my thoughts on the Bikeriders. I just don't really care. It gets more messy when I think about it. I mean, man, if it just got away from trying to replicate Scorsese, I think that maybe it would have gotten all these materials, all these ideas, all these individual elements, that the performers and all that stuff. I think that if it just the mentality of what's hovering over it all was different and something frankly more original, then I think maybe these things would make more sense and blend well together. Because that spirit that's taking priority just doesn't complement or really work for any of these other elements here. It just separates them even further. So at least I hope that makes sense in how I'm constructing my thoughts. But You guys know your thoughts on the Bikeriders. It comes out this week, so if you guys are gonna check it out, you guys let me know your thoughts, or if you guys have already seen it, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.